Good afternoon. So I was asked to talk about the vision of the Philippine churches. So I'll be talking about the challenges and opportunities for the Philippine churches. Three things I'll be talking about. First, I'll be talking about the unchurched barangays. There are 42,000 barangays in the country, and I'll talk about unchurched barangays. I'll be talking about unreached people groups and also our overseas Filipino workers. So these are the three challenges that we are actually having as a church in the Philippines. Okay, so first let me talk about unchurched barangays. The status of church multiplication today, of course, we are familiar with Jeong 2000. In 1974, there were only 5,000 churches in the Philippines. That's about 1.8% of the Philippine population. That's about 600,000 evangelical Christians that time. Because of the Jeong movement, we were able to see 51,300 churches. The projection before was there will be 50,000 churches by year 2000. So we praise God, we were able to overshoot the goal. 51,300, that's 8.9% of the Philippine population. From 600,000, we have seen evangelical Christianity grow to 7.2 million. Praise God for Jeong 2000. Now, 2015, you can see that there was a slowdown. Several factors, I don't have time to elaborate on that, but 51,000 to only 66 in a matter of 15 years compared to only 26 years earlier. So about 9.5%. From 2015, the evangelical leaders agreed again to have another vision called PB 120 by 2020. That's Philippines Vision 120,000 churches by 2020. And when we were discussing and talking about this, I was asking the question, if we want to double the number of churches, are we also seriously thinking of doubling the number of believers? Because what we have seen lately is that the number of churches are growing, but the number of believers still remain, it remains almost the same. So we call this the circulation of the saints. The saints are just circulating, transferring from one church to the other. You see more churches planted, but they are from different churches. This is not a good idea, no? So anyway, today, there are 42,000 barangays, or barangays are small communities in the Philippines. And the latest from the Philippine Challenge is 91,000 Bible-believing churches. And what is interesting here is that the churches are only situated in the 23,000 barangays, 19,000 barangays are still unchurched. Can you believe that? Year 2000, we were 51,000 churches. We're actually only half. 21,000 barangays with churches and 21,000 barangays without any church. Now you're only talking of 2,000 barangays, 40,000 churches added, and those 40,000 churches are only added in 2,000 barangays. So you can really see that there are a lot of communities that are overlooked. So much remains to be done, and so church planting should really be done in overlooked and neglected communities. And so we're trying to assess what these communities are. And of course, I'll talk about that in my next point. But we were actually challenging the churches to adopt unchurched barangays. So we are now working on an app. It's already ready. It's actually being used now. We're updating the data. About 68,000 churches are now updated. On the application. We still have to really put into the rest of the churches. So that real time, we will know which barangays have a church and barangays that does not have churches. So we can be more strategic in terms of planting churches. Now, when we look at the unchurched barangays, we realize that these barangays are actually poor and depressed communities. So nobody would want to plant churches there. But many of them are also Muslim communities, or where unreached people groups are. Okay, so the challenge is to plant churches in unchurched barangays, and now the challenge of also reaching people groups. Well, it had been already shared earlier, the challenge for us in Matthew 24:14. Our finish line is to see that the gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed, will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. So the people groups, the nations, ethne, will really be rich. So again, what is the Great Commission? We are to make disciples of all nations. And of course, the word nations there is the word ethne, where we get the English word ethnic, which means people group or tribal group. So many churches or many believers do not understand the word nations. They really think of politically defined geographical territories. Like when they hear the word nations, they think of countries, China, Singapore, Malaysia. But really, it's a people group or ethnic group. Well, in Habakkuk 1:5, this is always our inspiration. The Almighty God says, look at the nations and watch, and be utterly amazed, for I'm going to do something in your days that you would not believe, even if you were told. So we need to really do missions. And Ralph Winter said that missions does not refer to redemptive activities of the church within societies or communities or barangays where the church is found, but missions refer to the redemptive activity of the church within societies, communities, or barangays where the church is not found. And the real challenge here is that many churches are still concentrating church planting efforts and evangelism in barangays that already have a lot of churches, and still totally neglecting or overlooking ang church barangays. So we are challenging them, dapat ng church barangays, they may be poor or depressed, they may be Muslim, predominantly Muslim communities, but this is real missions. And we can only see the Great Commission completed if we will be able to see all the nations, all the unreached people groups are reached with the gospel. Now, there are 175 to 185 ethno-linguistic groups. Actually, we have 175, but SIL, the consortium of Tambuli, SIL, Wycliffe, and others involved in Bible translation are now seeing or actually discovering more people groups, more ethnic tribal groups. And so they said we could have about 8 or 9 or 10 more. So anyway, whether that's 175 or 185, the point is only 14 remain unreached. And all these 14 are Muslims. So seriously, if we want to see the Great Commission completed in the Philippines, we need to see the intentional adoption of Muslim people groups. And we would want to really see adoption of all Muslim communities. According to research, the 10% of the world's population are dedicated Christians, 20% are nominal, 28% are non-Christians within reach, meaning they know a Christian, somebody can share the gospel with them, but 42% of the world's population do not know a Christian. In fact, this is very, very conservative, they said, estimate. But anyway, we have the mandate to share the gospel. We have the mandate to multiply disciples. Now, let me share what the National Commission on Muslim Filipinos have. 2012 estimate. They said that the Philippine population, about 10.7 million are Muslims. That's about 11% of the population. This will tally with the national census and statistics figures because many of the Muslim communities, they are not able to register their births or babies. So if you go to these communities, you ask them, what's your birthday? They do not know. And so one of the things our teams are doing is really helping them, assisting them to get their birth certificates. So, okay, you are now, we just say, maybe you are 40 years old. Okay, and then maybe your birthday. So we saw there, you who was born first. Okay, so, from there, they assign birthdays. But anyway, in 2010, National Statistics Office actually made a research, a survey, and of course number 10 is Metro Manila. It's not a province. The rest are provinces. There were only 105,094 Muslims there. Now look at 2014. 4 years later, it's 1.1 million. Okay, so from from 105,000 to 1.1 million. A migration of 1 million from the south moving to Metro Manila alone. So the latest survey, April of this year, we have already counted 204 mosques in Greater Metro Manila alone. This is serious. They are planting 40 mosques average every year in Metro Manila. And so this is a great challenge, and the churches in Manila are not even doing anything. Well, we all know that there is an increasing movement of people globally also. And so they said most of the unreached peoples are situated in the 1040 window. And of course, they estimate about 82. Some say 83 or 85, or Nana said 87% do not know a Christian. They do not know a Christ follower. And what is exciting is that these people from the 1040 window, many of them have jumped out of the window. And they are now in the Philippines. Before pandemic, more than 500 students from Saudi Arabia are in our universities. And these are from the rich and the famous families in Saudi Arabia. You know, we're thinking of reaching out to them in Saudi Arabia. Maybe we need to change strategy. Reach out to them while they are studying in the Philippines. We have, before pandemic, 30,000 Indian medical students. Now we're down to around 20,000. But many are planning to come again. These 20,000 Indian medical students are mostly Hindus. Of course, some are Muslims. But they are from the rich and the famous, from the upper caste in India. It's difficult to reach out to them in India, but they are so open here. And Pastor Mark is here, and he can attest to the fact that indeed they are so responsive to the gospel. But we need more workers. We need more people who would come alongside with the Philippine church to train and equip the church. Anyway, 2 million plus Chinese here. A lot of Indians that are not documented also. So they estimate about 1 million Indians here. South Asians, Middle Eastern, name it. We have 1 million Filipino Buddhists. 400,000 Buddhists now from mainland China are here. About 2 million from mainland China. A lot of atheists also are here. About 500,000, not million Hindus, no? Students, businessmen. Of course, these are those that are documented. So the mission field, the nations have really come to our doorsteps. Now, this is the challenge. 91,000 Bible-believing churches, but mind you, only 2,000 of these churches are involved in reaching the Muslims. 91,000. 89,000 are doing nothing and are not responsive. And it's also sad that not even 100 churches are reaching Hindus in the Philippines. Not even 100 churches are reaching Buddhists in the Philippines. Something must be done, really. So that's why we're saying, and A.T. Pearson said, Christians need conversion to missions as much as sinners need conversion to Christ. So we see the challenge of unchurched barangays. We see the challenge of unreached people groups. And of course, we have our overseas Filipino workers as well. Well, they said the Filipinos is the most scattered race in the world. We are more scattered than the Chinese and the Koreans, because Chinese and Koreans will only go to places where businesses are feasible, where they will make money. But Filipinos will go wherever jobs are available. So even if you know, there are a lot of Filipinos in war-torn areas, and you ask them, why are you there? They said, we are given bigger salaries, we have hazard pays, and more extra pay because of the peace and order situation. So they said, if it's really your time, it's your time. You know. So anyway, so what we are doing now, and the greatest challenge also for our churches, is to really help our Christian Filipino overseas workers to realize that they are actually, they can be used of the Lord. So we want to really help them understand that as they go and work overseas, that we have to cast the vision, the call, no? That they will pursue God's call, and we together as a missionary sending nation. So I call this the Filipino missionary mandate because we believe that the scattering of the Filipinos is God ordained. So we are convinced that God has an amazing plan for the Philippines, the Filipino people, and even our overseas Filipino workers. And this is for the fulfillment of the prophetic destiny that Philippines will be a missionary sending nation. In most countries of the world now where missionary visas are no longer given, our overseas Filipinos are already there. So we believe that God can really use them. Some amazing information. In 2012, the Philippines was named as the world's best country in business English. You can search that. No? So, yeah, number one, and this is very critical, and because of this, actually, the Philippines was named as the call center capital of the world. And even up to today, we are still, no? And we kept that. So 1.7 million call center agents from the Philippines alone. That comprise about 15% of the total outsourcing all over the world, no? And would you also believe that 30% of all seafarers, seamen in the world are Filipinos? 1 out of 3. More than 500,000 Filipino seafarers now. That's why now we can see churches on the ocean. No? A lot of, this is a paper in Saudi Arabia. The headline is, Imagine a World Without Filipinos. So recognizing the role of Filipinos even in their economy. Well, a lot of remittances. Last year, the overseas workers' remittance reached $36.14 billion US dollars. That's why we have a lot of, wealthy people, many dollars here in the country. Well, we have the spot list. That's why China is interested because of the a lot of resources there. Of course, we have the Benham rice. I don't know if you're aware of that, but the United Nations already said that's Philippine territory, and it has so much. Try to Google that, and it says so much wealth there. So if we can only tap on Benham rice and the spot list, the Philippines will have more than enough resources to fund our global ministry, world evangelization. No? And by the way, would you believe that the Philippine currency, the Philippine money, is the only currency in the world with a Bible verse? I don't know if you're see, pinagpala ang bayan ng Diyos ay ang Panginoon. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. That's Psalm 33 verse 12. So we can see God is doing something. So just some information to encourage us. And I call the Filipinos Pinoy, no? So we call them Amazing Pinoy, part of God's amazing plan. And we are convinced that the Filipinos have a missionary design. We're strategically located in Asia, very close to almost all of Asia, with the advent of this budget airlines, so much opportunities to do missions work. We're the only Christian nation in Asia. We're the blend of the East and the West. That's why Filipinos, we look like almost everybody. I go to Malaysia, they thought I'm Malaysian. I go to Indonesia, they thought I'm Indonesian. I go to India, they thought I'm from the Northeast. I go to Mongolia, they thought I'm Mongolian. So, wow. So, that's how God designed, Filipinos. And we don't have enemies. We're not even a threat. We don't have the capacity. We're highly adaptable to adversity, persevering in the midst of extreme conditions. With all the calamities, typhoon, and all of this hitting the Philippines, even CNN, Fox News, BBC, reporters are amazed. Filipinos, they basically lost everything. But if there is a camera, they can smile. It only takes a camera to make them smile and forget what happened. Persevering in the midst of extreme conditions. That's why Filipino missionaries thrive in the mission field. Well, many already quit, leave the ministry, the field, but Filipinos are still there. Filipinos can eat anything, almost anything. If goats will eat them, they said they can eat it. Anyway, Filipino missionaries survive. We have the amazing capacity to learn new languages. Imagine, 175 ethno-linguistic groups. You just drive, if you are in in the Philippines, in most cases, you drive 1 hour and they speak a different local language. No? So that's why Filipinos are really good at languages. And then we're highly literate and skillful. Yeah, so many stories about this. And of course, we're dispersed worldwide, cheerful, sociable, we're friendly, we have a servant heart, and very hardworking. So in other words, they said we are Filipinos. In Tagalog, pili means chosen. Pinili, you had been chosen. And Pino means refined. Pinili at pinino. So we believe that God have chosen the Filipinos and refined Filipinos so that God can use them mightily in global missions. No? And also God positioned the Filipinos amazingly. 2020, this was before the pandemic. You can see that the Filipinos are in 214 countries, 11 plus million. Just in Middle East and North Africa, you can see a total of more than 2 million. Saudi Arabia, almost 1 million. But there was a time where we actually hit 1.7 million overseas Filipino workers in Saudi Arabia alone. Look at Kuwait, United Arab Emirates, Qatar, and the rest of the places. 214 countries, over 1 million are born-again evangelicals. Many Christians are now living in this, in these countries where the churches are very weak, and many Christians are now living among the least evangelized and unreached peoples. So there is so much potential for ministry. And I was just checking last week with our Philippine Overseas Employment Authority, and they said we're back to 6,000 every day. Think about this, 6,000 Filipinos are leaving the country every day to live and work overseas. More than 10% are evangelical Christians. The potential of sending 600 tent-maker missionaries every day. 12 million Filipinos in 214 countries, that's Saudi Arabia, many countries with more than 50,000 Filipinos. We want to see overseas Filipino workers be known as outstanding Filipino witnesses, still OFW, no? And the global Pinoy is to be a blessing to the nations. Amazing end-time harvest stories. A lot of stories in Saudi Arabia. This is one testimony also. A Saudi lady said, I have a Filipino housemaid. She sings all the time and looks so joyful. I asked her what she was singing about, and she explained she was singing songs of praise and thanksgiving to God for Jesus. I asked her to tell me more about him, and through her witness, I became a Christian. And she said, this Saudi lady said, not only me, but my whole family and about 80 friends and family members and relatives came to Christ through our Filipino housemaid. This was reported by Michael O. in the website of John Piper. This is not from us. So that's why when I see Michael, he can remember me because of this. This is Tas. He is one of the trusted guys of Yasser Arafat, PLO, once an Arafat man. Very, very good story how their housemate was instrumental, to influencing him for Christ. You talk about Bahrain, you talk about Qatar, you talk about China, you talk about Hong Kong, you talk about Macau, talk about Singapore, many parts of the world. We can see how God is using our overseas Filipino workers. So Mr. Wong, let me share. Mr. Wong is Singaporean. The one with long hair is the housemaid. He is Singaporean mobilizer. That's me, my wife. So when Stanley knew I'm going to Singapore, he said, I'll arrange for you to meet Mr. Wong. And he said, because the housemaid is a Filipina. The Filipina housemaid was instrumental for the Wongs and the whole family to come to Christ. Mr. and Mrs. Wong are both architects, own a big construction company in Singapore, about 80 Filipino architects and engineers working in his company, and the Philippine housemaid was her discipler. Mr. Wong was telling me, Pastor, my discipler is our housemaid, Bioli. Every day I tell her, tomorrow tell me another Bible story. Tomorrow tell me another Bible story. Tomorrow another Bible story. And so this was the result of the prayer of Bioli. For 10 years she prayed for the employers to come to know Christ. And so the employer also asked, what else did you pray? For 10 years, she could have stopped on the PPO, right? but after 10 years. So she said, I want our church in the Philippines to be built. 23 million pesos. Mr. Wong funded everything, commissioned several engineers and architects to do it in appreciation for the Church of Bioli, who trained and equipped her to share with her the gospel. So that's the church. Also build the parsonage and the C building. That's the perspective drawing of the architect. That's Bioli. The right side is the church. The left side is the CE building, parsonage. If you look at Bioli, she's a very ordinary lady, but God amazingly used her. That's the house of Bioli, also a gift from Mr. Wong. And Mr. Wong funded ministries in Nepal, in Cambodia. This is the church he funded in Ukraine, in Kiev. The fifth church they built in China, and many churches. These are all ripple effects because there was a faithful Bioli, you know, who reached out and shared the gospel. So many stories how God is using Filipinos in Japan. We have outstanding Filipino wives because about 60% of the 200,000, about 120,000 Filipinas are married to Japanese. So we call them outstanding Filipino wives because through the wives, the Japanese husbands are won to the Lord. Dubai, 5 domestic helpers went share the gospel to wherever they are, and after several months they were able to start a church. There were more than 500 churches in Dubai alone. So these are these are in Dubai, the mentoring training that we are doing. In China, there's a pastor there who started a church. He is actually a factory worker, and his pastor said, when you go to Taiwan, don't join a church, start one. So he started a church, a factory worker. Here, nurses in the U.S. are starting churches. In the hospitals, they do Bible studies. So this is a church planted by husband and wife, both nurses. This is a church planted by the wife is a nurse, the husband is a teacher. So that's the church they built. So many opportunities actually. And what is exciting is the coming of BLTC, because our struggle is how do we equip our overseas workers. And we thank God for opportunities. And I was so blessed yesterday when you shared this, Caleb. And we really need the empowering of our lay people, our tent makers. They need to be equipped for the global harvest. And so we are so excited that we can be partners in this and helping them realize that where God has placed them, they need to multiply disciples. Where they live, where they work, where they study, and of course, not just multiply disciples, eventually churches. And we're also emphasizing the obedience-based discipleship, not knowledge-based discipleship. So every believer is a royal priest. Every believer is a minister. All of this will be realized when we have all of those trainings and equipping. So we're excited that we can be part of this, so we can see that there are challenges, but we thank God we have opportunities as well to train and equip our people with all the resources that God is giving us. So we are so grateful to BLTC and the partnership. We're talking with Reverend Jeong already. Next year we have to bring this down to the rest of the country, and we will be able to equip more of our overseas workers and churches to be involved with unreached peoples and even unchurched barangays. Kamsahamnida.